It was one of those late spring mornings in Maplewood, Oregon, where the town looks like it just woke up wearing yesterday's flannel. The air smelled like a mix of damp pine and somebody's ongoing experiment with bacon grease down the street. The sun wasn't fully awake yet, half hidden behind a stack of slow-moving clouds, but it was bright enough to make every windshield glare like divine punishment. At 8:47 a.m., Jake Morrison stood at the back of the longest line he'd ever seen at the Maplewood DMV. It curved around the building like a sad parade of paperwork and impatience. Jake wore a denim jacket over a faded t-shirt that read, "It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine." A lie so bold even the pigeons on the power line looked skeptical. He was 35, a freelance video editor who believed coffee could fix everything, except, apparently, his expired driver's license. Jake had come prepared. Earbuds, thermos, and a granola bar he'd already eaten in the parking lot out of nervous boredom. He was the kind of guy who narrated his own misfortune in his head, like a low-budget sitcom. This episode, Jake versus the DMV. Estimated runtime, forever. In front of him, a teenage girl in a neon pink hoodie scrolled through TikTok videos about conspiracy theories involving local squirrels. Behind him, an elderly man with a walking cane and a thick Boston accent kept muttering, "I've seen shorter lines at Disney World." Somewhere near the front, a toddler was losing a very public argument with gravity and a lollipop. The smell inside the building was uniquely DMV, anxiety, cheap carpet, and the faint ghost of Lysol. The posters on the walls promised things like, "Safe driving saves lives," and "Patience is a virtue," as if the universe was in on the joke. Jake took a deep breath and thought, well, if this is how I go, at least it's with paperwork in hand. Blank, underscore, blank. Time moved slower than dial-up internet. Every few minutes, the line shuffled forward, granting each person a fleeting taste of hope before crushing it again. The lady at the counter was typing like each keystroke might cost her a piece of her soul. Next, she'd bark, and the next victim, sorry, customer, would step forward with the enthusiasm of a funeral attendee. Jake found himself studying the people around him the way small-town folks study weather forecasts, with curiosity and judgment wrapped in politeness. There was a mom with 3 kids, one of whom was trying to lick the security glass, a middle-aged man rehearsing what sounded like a heartfelt apology to his future self, and a young woman with paint-stained hands, holding a sketchbook and smiling to herself. That last one, Lila Andrews, caught Jake's eye. She had the calm patience of someone who'd mastered the art of waiting. Her hair was tied up messily, she wore an oversized mustard cardigan, and she looked like she might have walked out of an indie film titled Stillness and Tea. She noticed him glancing and smiled. "First time here?" she asked, voice cheerful enough to make the old man behind Jake grumble something about youthful optimism. "No," Jake said, smirking. "Just my first time bringing snacks." Lila laughed. "Smart man, you'll survive longer than most." As the line dragged on, their small talk became a kind of alliance. She was a local art teacher, she said, here to update her address. Jake confessed he was procrastinating on editing a wedding video because the bride keeps texting me emojis of disappointment. "Wow," Lila said. "I didn't know they made those." "They do," Jake said dryly. "They look like a frown wearing mascara." Around 10:30, a storm cloud wandered in from nowhere. Rain tapped on the big DMV windows, making everything outside blur into watercolor. The line grew restless. People sighed, scrolled, yawned. But something about that rain made Jake pause. It was oddly beautiful, the kind of slow drizzle that turns even parking lots into cinematic sets. He found himself thinking, maybe it's okay to be stuck sometimes. Maybe we're all just buffering. A few folks started joking aloud about setting up camp. One woman pulled out a portable fan and offered to rent it for $5 a breeze. The Boston man loudly declared that if he died in this line, someone should tell his wife he loved her, but not to touch his baseball cards. Lila handed Jake a small sketchbook page. It was a quick doodle she'd just made, a line of cartoonish people waiting in front of a door marked Patience Testing Center. Above it, in looping handwriting, she'd written, "We're all waiting for something, might as well laugh." Jake stared at it, then at her, and chuckled. "You should sell those." She shrugged. "Or give 'em away. Feels better." By the time Jake reached the counter hours later, his coffee was cold, his phone was dying, but his mood, somehow, had improved. Maybe it was the absurdity of it all, or the weird camaraderie that formed among strangers. When he finally stepped outside into the fresh air, the rain had stopped. The clouds had broken apart like an apology, revealing a soft blue sky. Lila was just ahead, flipping open a rainbow-striped umbrella. "Hey," she said, grinning. "Same time next week." Jake laughed. "Only if we get matching thermoses." They parted ways with a wave, two strangers bonded by shared suffering and snack crumbs. He walked to his car, smiling to himself, thinking how funny life was. You spend all morning waiting for something small, and somehow you end up finding something bigger. Maybe patience wasn't about standing still. Maybe it was about seeing what shows up while you wait. By the time summer settled into Maplewood, Oregon, the whole town smelled faintly of barbecue smoke and freshly cut grass, the twin perfumes of small-town optimism. It was the kind of season where everyone had a reason to be outside, even if that reason was pretending to enjoy humidity. The local radio station kept looping 80s hits, the ice cream shop had a line stretching halfway to Kansas, and the world felt alive in that lazy, sparkling, nothing urgent but everything nice kind of way. Jake Morrison, the DMV survivor, sat at Maplebean Cafe, Maplewood's proudest landmark after its water tower and self-declared world's friendliest raccoon. He was working, or rather, almost working, on his laptop. The cursor blinked in judgment, waiting for him to finish editing the wedding video that had haunted his conscience since April. But instead, he was scrolling through dog memes and watching the cafe's door like someone expecting a plot twist. It arrived in the form of Lila Andrews, balancing 2 coffees and a portfolio under one arm. "Well," she said, sliding into the seat across from him, "if it isn't Mr. Patience himself." Jake grinned. "Please, I prefer, king of the line." She handed him one of the coffees, oat milk latte, just like last time. They'd seen each other a few times since the DMV saga, a friendly encounter at the farmer's market, a mutual rescue mission for a neighbor's escaped golden retriever, and now this, their unofficial weekly caffeine summit. "Guess what?" Lila said, eyes bright. "Remember that doodle I gave you at the DMV? I posted it on my art page. People loved it. Some even asked if I'd make prints." "That's awesome," Jake said, genuinely impressed. "See, all that waiting paid off." She smirked. "Guess patience sells." They talked about art, deadlines, and how adult life was basically one big waiting line, except the snacks were worse. The cafe buzzed around them, a toddler chasing a muffin crumb, a retiree group arguing about crossword clues, and Sam the barista, yelling cheerful threats like, "If anyone asks for decaf again, I'm quitting." Jake noticed something that had been quietly shifting in him. The guy who'd once groaned at every delay now found comfort in the slow pace of things. He'd started taking walks without podcasts, cooking real dinners, and occasionally calling his mom just to say hi. Small changes, but real ones. He'd even put up Lila's doodle on his fridge. It made him laugh every morning, a reminder that time wasn't his enemy. It was just a weird roommate who moved at its own speed. Blank, blank. A week later, the Maplewood County Fair arrived, the town's annual excuse to eat fried everything and pretend competition was friendly. The sun was high, the air sticky with the scent of funnel cake and nostalgia. Families wandered the fairgrounds holding lemonade cups that could double as buckets. Jake volunteered to film the event for the local community center. "Easy gig," he'd said. "Just shoot smiling people eating food." What he didn't anticipate was that the line for the Ferris wheel would become his personal Everest. By noon, he stood once again at the back of a long queue, camera around his neck, sweat forming where confidence used to live. "Déjà vu," said a voice behind him. He turned, Lila, wearing sunglasses and a sundress patterned with tiny suns. "I'm starting to think the universe has a sense of humor," Jake said. "Oh, it definitely does," she replied. "We're just the punchlines." They waited together again, this time under a mercilessly bright sky. Kids screamed with joy and sugar, vendors shouted about corn dogs, and somewhere a band was attempting a cover of Journey. The line moved at a snail's pace, but it didn't matter. There was laughter, teasing, and stories about nothing that somehow meant everything. When they finally reached the front, Jake realized he'd been smiling the whole time. Like, actual smiling, the unforced, face hurts kind. Lila noticed too. "You've changed," she said. "You actually enjoy waiting now." He raised an eyebrow. "Don't push it. I just enjoy the company." She laughed, rolling her eyes as they climbed into the Ferris wheel car. The view from the top was a postcard. Maplewood spread out below them like a cheerful quilt, rows of houses with green lawns, red barns in the distance, kids running near food trucks. Jake felt something inside him settle, the same way the world does right before sunset, that quiet acknowledgement that life isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn beautiful anyway. blank, underscore, blank. By late afternoon, the fair was winding down. The sun dipped low, washing everything in gold. Jake helped pack up the community booth, joking with the volunteers. Lila painted kids' faces, her laughter echoing across the fairground. As he filmed one last shot, an old couple slow dancing near the cotton candy stand, he realized the irony wasn't lost on him. The guy who used to rage about slow Wi-Fi was now standing perfectly still, soaking in the moment like it might never come again. Later, as they sat on a picnic bench eating melting ice cream, Jake said, "You know what's funny? I think the line might be the best part of the ride." Lila smiled, nodding. "Told you, patience sells." He chuckled, wiping chocolate from his hand. "Yeah, but happiness, that's free." She looked at him, that quiet, knowing kind of look, and said softly, "Only if you wait for it." They sat there in comfortable silence, watching the lights flicker on one by one across the fairground. Fireflies danced above the grass. The sound of laughter drifted like a soundtrack to small-town life. Blank, underscore, blank. Sometimes the line feels endless. The wait unbearable, the goal too far off to see. But maybe the universe hides joy in the pauses, in the awkward chats, the coffee refills, the shared smiles with strangers. Because one day, you'll realize that every delay, every setback, every long queue, wasn't stealing your time. It was giving you perspective. And if you can still smile while waiting, you've already arrived.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivate.